Hello and welcome to one and all. In today's class, I'm starting with the second unit, that is the theories of consumer behavior. So if you remember the subject matter of economics, the first subject matter of economics is consumption. So that is that those theories are explained in this unit, theories of consumer behavior. Now, consumption already explained. Consumption is the basis for production. Without consumption, if there is no consumption, there is no production, there is no exchange, there is no distribution, isn't it? So consumption happens to be the basis for production, exchange, and distribution. Or in other words, consumption is the basis for all economic activities. This consumption depends on behavior of the consumer. So consumption depends on consumers' behavior. So it is necessary to analyze the behavior of the consumer in order to know about the consumption process, so that all the other economic activities which are based on consumption can be properly analyzed and framed. So that is the first topic which is analyzed detail is the behavior of the consumer. So how the consumer behaves while consumption, and each and every consumer, they have different tastes, they have different preferences. So the behavior of all the consumers are not one and the same. So it is necessary to analyze the behavior of the consumer, and this consumer's behavior while consuming, that depend on what basis the consumer is consuming a particular commodity or service. We all know that that is based on utility. So utility, consumer behavior depends on the utility of the commodity. So if what is the meaning of utility? The want satisfying power of a commodity, isn't it? So the want satisfying power of a good or service. So we all know that it differs from one person to another person. The same commodity is not liked by two individuals. Each and every person likes different types of varieties of commodities, different varieties of services. So one commodity might be having the satisfying power to one person, but it might not be having the same satisfying power to the another person. So it differs from one person to person, place to place, time to time. We all know that. So this want satisfying power of a commodity or service is known as utility. So even though it is differing from one person to another person, this utility happens to be the one of the main base uh, to know about how the consumer behaves while consuming a particular commodity. So in order to analyze the theories of consumer behavior, we have to measure, it is necessary to measure the utility, of course, or in other words, it is necessary to measure the satisfaction derived by the consumer after consuming a particular commodity or service, which is a very difficult task. It is a subjective concept. Satisfaction is a subjective concept. Utility is a subjective concept. Welfare is a subjective concept. We all know that. But the economists have tried to measure, at least vaguely, at least remotely, to measure the satisfaction derived by the consumer, try to measure the utility derived by the consumer after consuming a particular commodity or service. And based on that measurement, they have analyzed or framed the theories of consumer behavior. So this measurement in economics, there are two approaches to this measurement of utility. So two approaches are used by different economists to measure utility. So the first approach is the cardinal utility approach. So the cardinal utility approach, as per this analysis, this approach, it is assumed that the satisfaction derived by the consumer, the satisfaction derived by a consumer after consuming a good or service, after consuming a good or service, can be measured in cardinal numbers. So this is the approach used by the some of the economists who try to measure the consumer behavior based on cardinal utility approach, measured in cardinal numbers. When I say cardinal numbers, that is what? 1, 2, 3, etc. See, for example, if I say that after consuming 1 cup of coffee, I am getting 1 util of satisfaction. See, the economists use the term something called as util. Just like we are using kilometers, meters or inches, like that the metric calculations are used, isn't it? Liters. So like that, in order to measure the satisfaction derived the consumer, the you it is used, it is called as a util. The measuring unit is called as a util. So after consuming 1 cup of coffee, I am getting 1 util of satisfaction. After consuming 2 cups of coffee, I'm getting 2 utils of satisfaction. So, and so on. So that means what? After consuming each and every commodity or service, the consumer is able to measure a certain amount of satisfaction by measuring them in terms of cardinal numbers. So that is the approach used by some of the economists like Marshall. So Marshall analysis approach is mainly based on cardinal utility approach. Okay, so he, based on this cardinal utility approach, he has given his famous laws. One is law of diminishing marginal utility, and another law what he gave is the law of equi-marginal utility. So these are all the 2 laws of consumption. These laws are all the laws of consumption given by Marshall in his book Principles of Economics to analyze the behavior of the consumer, and he used this cardinal utility approach in framing his law. So that is one type of approach used by one batch of economists, especially Marshall. Then there are some other economists who used another approach which is known as the ordinal utility approach. So some other economists, they are all of the opinion that it is not possible to measure the satisfaction derived by the consumer after consuming a particular commodity in cardinal numbers. How can you say that after consuming 1 cup of coffee, I'm getting 1 util, 2 utils? How is it possible for any consumer to measure like that? So some other economists, they are of the opinion that the measurement of utility or the satisfaction cannot be measured in cardinal numbers, but only in ordinal numbers. So that is the opinion of another batch of economists who followed the ordinal utility approach in deriving the laws of consumption. So ordinal numbers means what? Like first, second, third, etc. So when I say first, second, third, etc., means we are arranging in the order of preference. According to these economists, at the most the consumer can say only what is his first preference, what is his second preference, etc. So at the most the consumer can say that my first preference is coffee, my second preference is tea, my third preference is milk, etc. So it is not possible to exactly give certain numbers for the satisfaction derived, but the consumer can only say that his first preference is mango, my second preference is apple, So you can arrange only in the order of his preferences. So that is the ordinal utility approach. So mostly this approach is followed by two economists, Hicks and Allen. So they framed their laws of consumption, they framed their theories of consumer behavior based on ordinal utility approach, which is popularly known as the indifference curve technique. So this is the difference between the cardinal utility and the ordinal utility approach. Now let us first start with the cardinal utility approach, that is the law of diminishing marginal utility. Then we will see about the other laws. So the first one, the law of diminishing marginal utility. So before I proceed to explain the law, let me just explain to you what is the meaning of this diminishing marginal utility. See, basically the law is stating only the natural human tendency. See, for example, if you are, maybe you like, for example, let us take mangoes. So most of the people, they like mangoes, but we all know that mangoes are not available throughout the year. It is available only during a particular season. So before the onset of that particular season, before the onset of the arrival of mangoes in the market, everybody will be so interested, waiting for mangoes. So you'll be so interested to consume mangoes because you have been waiting for a long period of time to consume mangoes. But once the mangoes are flooding in the market and every day you start consuming the markets, your satisfaction will keep on decreasing, isn't it? So initially, when you are consuming the first mango, your satisfaction is too high because you're too excited to consume that mango. But since every day you're now, it is the mango season, so every day you are able to purchase the mango, every day you are able to consume the mango, the same level of excitement you're not having when you're consuming the mango after 1 month, isn't it? So that is the principle. It says this law is highlighting, that is the diminishing marginal utility. So this law is one based on one of the most important feature of human wants. Wants are satiable. The other day when I was explaining the features of human wants, I explained to you what is the meaning of wants are satiable. That means what, some of the wants at a particular point of time, one particular want can be completely satisfied. So once you are completely satisfied at that particular point of time after consuming a particular commodity, then if you are forced to consume that same commodity again, then what happens? Your utility, your satisfaction will keep on diminish. That's what this law is saying, the law of diminishing marginal utility. Okay, so this is the meaning of this law. This is what the law is trying to prove, by giving hypothetical example, by giving some numerical figures, by taking an hypothetical example. This law is trying to prove that if the consumer is consuming the same commodity again and again, the satisfaction is bound to reduce, the satisfaction is bound to diminish after the period of consumption. Okay, so let us see how the law is being framed. So this law, originally an economist called H. Gosson. So introduction. So H. Gosson was the first economist to use the terms law of, two laws are there. Law of first economist, to use or to introduce law of diminishing and the law of equi-marginal utility in the year 1854. And later in 1871, W.S. Jevons. So he termed this as law of diminishing marginal utility. So he called this law as Gausson's H.S. Gausson's first law of consumption. And law of equi-marginal utility as, there's another law of equi-marginal utility as Gausson's second law of consumption. So this, he did it in 1871. Okay. And later in 1890, Marshall, through his principles of economics, he popularized both these laws. So finally, the credit for popularizing the law of diminishing and equi-marginal utility goes to Marshall. So even though Gausson introduced in the beginning, it was Marshall who popularized through his book 1890. You know that he published this book, Principles of Economics. Through that book, Marshall popularized these two laws in 1890. Okay. Now, this law, what does the law say? As I mentioned, the statement of the law. So the statement of the law is basically trying to bring out the relation between the quantity of the commodity and the satisfaction derived by a consumer. So as the quantity of the commodity consumed keeps on increasing, automatically the satisfaction keeps on decreasing. Just now I mentioned the mangoes in the beginning, the quantity is very less. First mango, you are too excited, so the satisfaction is high. But you keep on consuming mangoes one after another. The quantity of mangoes keep on increasing, but that kind of excitement, that kind of satisfaction you are not deriving. It is a common thing for not just one or two persons. It is a universal phenomenon, because for everyone, the wants can be unlimited, but at the same time, for every one of us, the wants are satiable. So it is trying to bring out the relationship between the quantity of a particular commodity and the satisfaction derived by the consumer. And this satisfaction keeps on decreasing as the quantity increases. Or in other words, there is an inverse relationship between the satisfaction derived by the consumer and the quantity of the commodity. That's what the law is trying to state. So the statement of the law. So the law states that if a consumer keeps on increasing the consumption of same commodity without any time. There are certain assumptions. I will just finish the illustration, then I will explain to you what are the assumptions. So you are assuming the consumer is consuming the commodity without any time gap. The same commodity again and again. The satisfaction he or she derives, will keep on decreasing. So this is what the law is trying to prove. Okay. So now this law is being proved by taking some hypothetical example. Okay. So with the when I say hypothetical example, with the help of a table and diagram. So for example, so this is the illustration of a law. So it is like, imagine you are conducting a laboratory experiment two people are asked to consume mangoes one after another continuously without any time gap, and they are asked to measure cardinally how much satisfaction they are receiving. If a person is continuously given mangoes and he is asked to tell some numbers how much satisfaction he is receiving after consuming each and every successive unit of that mango. So this is like conducting a laboratory experiment. So which is expressed in the form of a table. Illustration of the law is nothing but the same statement which I've just mentioned is expressed in the form of a table. So it is only a hypothetical numerical example. So in the first column, we are taking units of X. So let us assume, since we started with mangoes, let us assume units mango, X happens to be mangoes. Okay. And the second column, the total utility. Total utility is nothing but the total satisfaction. So the total satisfaction derived by the consumer. So that is the second column. And the third column is the marginal utility. So marginal utility is the additional satisfaction. So let us assume first mango. A consumer is consuming the first mango and he is saying some numbers he has to give, cardinal numbers, how much satisfaction he is deriving, he is supposed to say. So assume that his satisfaction is equal to 40 utils. I mentioned to you, util is the measuring unit. So let us assume he is saying he is deriving 40 utils of satisfaction. Okay. Now, continuously, again, immediately, he is been given the second mango. So the second mango, he is saying that his utility is increased to 70. So this is so what is this total satisfaction? After consuming one mango, it is 40. After consuming the second mango, the total satisfaction increases to 70. That means what? Both the mangoes, the first mango and the second mango together, they are giving it is those two mangoes giving him the total satisfaction of 70 utils. Okay. So marginal utility is the additional satisfaction. So additional, in the first unit, there is no additional. So it is nil. But in the second one, he is getting the additional satisfaction of how much is the additional here? First unit is giving him 40 utils of satisfaction. Second unit is giving him 70 utils of satisfaction. So what is the additional satisfaction he is getting? So 70 minus 40 is getting 30 utils of satisfaction. So this is marginal utility. Okay, like that continuously. The third mango. So third mango is getting, so total for all the three mangoes he is getting 90 utils of satisfaction. So only for the third mango he is getting 90 minus 70. So he is getting 20 utils of satisfaction. Like that, it keeps on going. Fourth mango is all the four mangoes is giving 100 utils of satisfaction. Only the fourth mango, 100 minus 90 is getting 10 utils of satisfaction. And now still he is being given the mango to consume. So he's reached its maximum. He's not getting any more satisfaction. So fifth mango is also giving him only 100 utils of satisfaction. So 100 minus 100 is satisfaction has reached the maximum. That means there is no additional satisfaction. So it has become 0. And still, if he is asked to consume one more unit of mango, is vomiting. He starts vomiting literally. So his satisfaction, total satisfaction itself, it's declining, and this additional satisfaction is becoming negative. This is minus 10. Now, this is the hypothetical example. Hope it is clear. Even though it is only a hypothetical example, I think all of us can relate to in the actual practice also. Initially, our satisfaction is very, very high, but then If we are asked to consume, if we are consuming the same commodity again and again, automatically our satisfaction will not be as much as what we consume with the first unit. Our satisfaction will keep on decreasing. So this has been this natural phenomena of each and every human being. This is this natural capacity of utility. This natural want satisfying capacity of each and every person is being put it in the form of an illustration or a table. Now, if you see this 40 is first unit, this is nil. This is marginal utility of the first unit. This is the marginal utility. This is the marginal utility of the second unit. This is the marginal utility of only the third unit. This is the marginal utility of only the fourth. And fifth, it's 0. And finally, in sixth, is getting the negative satisfaction. Okay. So now, this is what is being explained as the law of diminishing marginal utility. This is the common experience of each and every consumer. So when each and every consumer is experiencing the same thing, how he has to behave when he is purchasing a particular commodity. So remember, this chapter is about the consumer behavior. So when he keeps on consuming the same commodity, if his satisfaction keeps on decreasing, he will not consume, isn't it? He will stop consuming. So if he stops consuming, then there is no production, no exchange, no distribution. Now you understand? Consumption is the basis for all economic activities. So this is how it is analyzed. The same thing before I has to be explained in the diagrammatically also. But before proceeding with the diagrammatic explanation, let me explain you in detail what is the meaning of this total utility and the marginal utility. So based looking at the table, you can understand what is the how the total utility is arrived. To put it in words, total utility. So you have to explain, when you are explaining this table, the first column is representing all the units. The second column is representing the total utility. Now, what is the meaning of this total utility? How do you put it in sentences? So if you see that first mango is giving 40 utils of satisfaction. Second mango, after consuming the 2 mangoes, his satisfaction is increasing to 70 utils. After consuming 5 mangoes, his satisfaction is 100 units. After consuming 6 mangoes, his satisfaction is decreasing to 90 utils. So one thing you can understand is there is a relationship between the quantity of the commodity, quantity of mangoes and the satisfaction. So the total satisfaction is depending upon the quantity of mangoes the consumer is consuming. So after consuming 2 mangoes, this is his total satisfaction. After consuming all the 4 mangoes, this is the satisfaction the consumer is receiving. The same thing when we are putting it in the form of words or sentences. So the total utility. So total utility is the total satisfaction derived by a consumer after consuming all units of a commodity. So this is the meaning of, so after consuming all the units, what is the total satisfaction the consumer is deriving? That is the meaning of total utility. So you can clearly see that the total utility or the total satisfaction changes according to the quantity of commodity. So total utility depends on the quantity of commodity, isn't it? That is, total utility is a function of total utility of commodity X is a function of quantity of commodity X. So you can say that the total utility increases, but it is increasing at a decreasing rate. The rate of increase is decreasing. So initially it is 30, but if it is increasing, the next unit should give him additional 40, isn't it? But additionally, it is giving him only 20. So the total utility is increasing as the quantity keeps on increasing, but the rate of increase is at a decreasing rate. And after a certain point of time, he's getting this. At this point, when he's consuming the fifth mango, at this point is the maximum satisfaction. The total satisfaction is maximum. After that, the total satisfaction is declining. So this is the meaning of total utility. Now, the next column, we are finding the marginal utility. So what is a marginal utility? Every additional unit the consumer is consuming, and what is the additional satisfaction the consumer is deriving. That is what the marginal utility. So the third column, we are having the marginal utility. So the marginal utility, popularly known as MU, is the additional satisfaction derived by the consumer after consuming. So when he gets the additional satisfaction after consuming one more unit, after consuming an additional unit of a good. So this is how we are arriving. So 90, so the total utility of second unit minus total utility of first unit, 19. This is 70 minus 40, you are getting a 30. So this is the total utility of 2 units. This is the total utility of first unit. So total utility of second unit minus the total utility of first unit, you are arriving at 30. Total utility of third unit minus total utility of second unit, you are arriving at the utility of third unit. That is the marginal utility. So if you are putting it in the formula, marginal utility is equal to total utility of n commodities minus total utility of n minus 1. So this is the marginal utility of nth commodity. So this is the formula for marginal utility. So you can see that this is what the additional satisfaction. We can see that this additional satisfaction keeps on decreasing. So this is what the law of diminishing marginal utility is trying to prove. Okay, still there is continuation of this law. The same table has to be expressed in the form of a diagram, which I will, and also there are certain assumptions are also there for this law. So which I will explain to you in my next class. Okay. So if you are able to understand this video, or if you are not able to understand this concept, please mention your comments in the comment box. And also if you like this video, if you find this video useful, please like, share and subscribe. So until my next video, take care. Bye-bye.